self-destructive patterns where I sin or I make a mistake or I make a decision and then I face the consequences of that decision and then I whine about it and then somehow it gets fixed and then I go on about my way and I come back and do the same thing again. Anybody relate to that a little bit? How many of you, by show of hands, when you drive your automobile, that you drive the gas gauge all the way down to E? How many of you are like that? Well, more than the others. I thought it'd be about half. You're about 3/4. And you know that when you get down there at the E or just below E, and you look at the little thing that some of you have newer cars, and it says, oh, you got like 12 miles left, you're fine. Except you've been driving freeway miles, and now all of a sudden you're in the city, and you're getting half the gas mileage you did before, and so it goes clomp, and you're down. And so you make a bad decision because you don't put gas in the car, and you find yourself side of the road, out of gas, and then you pick up your cell phone and you whine about it and cry to somebody about it, whether it's a AAA or whether it's your spouse or somebody to come along or parents to help you, and then a rescuer comes along with a gallon of gas at about $14, and they put that in there and your tank, and then you get to the gas station, and then you fill up, and what do? Drive it all the way down to E again, because you just don't learn, and those of us who are E drivers, we do it every time, and we just see how far we can go. Well, we're all susceptible to those types of patterns in our life. The Israelites were no different. In fact, I think they kind of carved the pattern for us in the book of Judges, where they would have this same cycle of things that would happen. They would get in trouble by getting their eyes off God. They would face their consequences and whine about it. They would cry out for some help, and then God would send a deliverer. In this capacity, it was a judge. So they would sin, they would become slaves to the enemy, they would cry out for help, and God would send a redeemer. God would send a savior. God would send a judge. God would send somebody in to rescue the situation. Over and over it happened. The Israelites would keep rebelling. In fact, their rebellion wasn't like it was a little slip. This is important to know. The rebellion wasn't a little mistake. It wasn't a trip. It was a blatant rebellion against God by following the gods of foreign women. So even 1,000+ years, these dumb guys would see these pretty girls and go after them, and they would follow their gods. And that's why God said, listen, guys, Israelites, you cannot hook up with foreign women. You can't do it because you'll fall in love with them and they'll pull their little magic on you, which all you women have over us men, and then you will follow their gods. And listen, I just read through the Bible again, and when the Old Testament, I read it in a week, in the Old Testament, the one thing you don't do with God is follow another god. You can mess up, commit adultery, get drunk, have sex with relatives. You do all that stuff. It's all bad, but you shouldn't do it, but do it. But whatever you do, don't you follow another god. Don't you? Because then it's game on. Now you have infuriated God, and God does some stuff in the Bible that's almost unmentionable in public, of the things that he did, of people that would turn to another god. And that's why God said, do not hook up with foreign women, because you will follow their gods. You can't help it. You can't control yourself. And sure enough, they did. We pick it up in Judges chapter 3, verse 4. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their forefathers through Moses. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods. So here we go. The blatant rebellion against God, following other gods and turning away from the Lord. Look at verse 7. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and Asherahs. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel so that he sold them, God sold them into the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram Naharaim. Doesn't that sound like a pro basketball player's name? And now starting at center for the Kings, Aram Naharaim. I don't know. I just think that's a cool name. You know, it's better than Brad Miller. That's too common. All right, to whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. Verse 9. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a deliverer, a rescuer, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, the good guy, who overpowered him. So the land had peace, you might want to underline that, had peace for 40 years until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. So the Israelites sinned. God turns them loose to their enemy and says, hey, you want to follow the other God? Good, go ahead. Sold them into their out of his protection. They become slaves to these people. They cry out to God. God gives them Othniel, who is the rescuer, the deliverer, the judge of that time, and then there's peace. Same song, different verse, verse 12. Once again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, getting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join him. Eglon, the bad guy, came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. The Israelites were subject or slaves to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Gera the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. And so the evil that they did was this disobedience of the Mosaic covenant, of Moses' law, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And so they turned their back on that, and they followed the gods, the Baals, Asherah, all these false gods. They forsook Yahweh. And the tribute that they brought to King Eglon, the bad guy, Ehud, the left-handed guy who was with Israel, that God had sent, the deliverer, the judge, they sent him with this, probably a cart. It probably had domestic animals around it. It probably had gold and silver. It may have had some other precious commodities of the day included with that. But whatever it was, it got Eglon's attention.